The fluorescent lights of Metropolitan Medical Center cast harsh shadows across the polished marble floors as Dr. Helena Vasquez stepped through the imposing glass doors. At 52, she carried herself with the quiet dignity of someone who had fought for everything she'd ever achieved. But today, even her practiced composure felt fragile. Her only professional suit, a navy blue ensemble she'd purchased 8 years ago from a discount store, hung slightly loose on her frame, the fabric showing the telltale signs of countless dry cleanings and careful repairs. These shoes, though polished to a respectable shine, bore scuffs that no amount of buffing could completely erase. She clutched her worn leather portfolio against her chest, knowing that inside lay credentials that would make most surgeons weep with envy, yet feeling the weight of judgment that always seemed to follow her wherever she went. The receptionist, a young woman with perfectly manicured nails and a smile that didn't take to reach her eyes, looked Helena up and down with barely concealed disdain. "Are you ready for the custodial position?" she asked, her tone dripping with assumption. Helena felt the familiar sting of prejudice slice through her chest, but she straightened her shoulders and replied with measured calm, "Yemi Dr. Helena Vasquez. I have an appointment with Dr. Marcus Stolling regarding the chief of surgery position." The receptionist's eyebrows shot up in surprise, as she fumbled with her computer, clearly flustered by her mistake. Let me call Dr. Stolling's office," she stammered, her cheeks flushing pink. Helena waited patiently, though inside, her heart hammered against her ribs. She'd been through this dance before: the skeptical looks, the whispered comments, the assumption that someone who looked like her couldn't possibly belong in the upper echelons of medicine. Dr. Marcus Stolling emerged from the elevator like a man who owned the world. Tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Helena made a month at the community clinic, he surveyed the lobby with the air of a king surveying his domain. His eyes landed on Helena, as she watched as his expression shifted from mild curiosity to poorly concealed disappointment. "Dr. Vasquez?" he asked, though his tone suggested he hoped there had been some mistake. When Helena stepped forward and extended her hand, he hesitated for just a moment too long before accepting it. His grip was firm but brief, as if he couldn't wait till break contact. "I see," he said, though what exactly he saw, Helena could only imagine. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken judgments, until Stolling finally gestured toward the elevator. "Shall we get this over with?" The words hit Helena like a slap, but she followed him anyway, her jaw clenched tight enough to crack teeth. The elevator hid till the 15th floor felt eternal. Stolling stood as far from Helena as the small space would allow, checking his expensive watch twice and screwing through his phone with theatrical importance. Helena studied his reflection in the polished steel doors, noting the way his lips pursed in distaste, the subtle shake of his head when he thought she wasn't looking. She'd encountered his type before: men who believed that success was their birthright, who couldn't fathom that someone from her background might have earned their place through merit rather than connections. When the doors finally opened, Stolling stepped out first without waiting, his long strides forcing Helena to hurry to keep up. "The chief of surgery position is key to demanding," he said without looking back. "It requires someone who can command respect from the board, the staff, and our most prestigious donors. Image matters tremendously in this role." The subtext wasn't lost on Helena. She didn't fit their image, and Stolling was making sure she knew it from the very beginning. Stolling's office was a monument to agri excess. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, while the walls displayed his numerous diplomas, awards, and photographs with prominent politicians and celebrities. His desk, a massive mahogany affair, was positioned to ensure that anyone sitting across from him would feel small and insignificant. Stolling settled into his leather chair with the satisfaction of a man accustomed to wielding power, while Helena took the considerably smaller chair on the opposite side. "Before we begin," he said, opening a feed folder with Helena's credentials, "I have to ask, are these documents authentic? Because frankly, your background at community hospitals and free clinics doesn't exactly scream leadership material for an institution of our caliber." Helena's hands tightened on her portfolio, but her voice remained steady. "Every credential in that field is authentic, Dr. Stolling. We performed over 12,000 surgeries, including some of the most complex trauma cases in the country." Stolling's laugh was cold and dismissive. "Community hospital trauma cases? Please. That's hardly comparable to the sophisticated procedures we perform, Eddie. The interview continued to spiral downward from there. Stoling questioned every aspect of Elena's background with the relentless precision of a prosecutor trying to discredit a witness. Tell me, Dr. Vasquez, how do you think our donos, men of whom are accustomed to dealing with, shall we say, more polished professionals, would react to your appointment? Imaging presentation era crucial in this role. Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her voice level. I believe donors would be interested in supporting a surgeon who has saved thousands of lives and improved patient outcomes wherever she has worked. Stoling leaned back in his chair, a smug smile playing at his lips. Patient outcomes are important, of course, but so is institutional prestige. Our previous chief of surgery graduated from Harvard, trained at Mayo Clinic, published extensively in the New England Journal of Medicine. He understood the importance of maintaining our reputation. The implication was crystal clear. Elena, with her state school education and community hospital experience, was decidedly beneath their standards. As the humiliation continued, Elena began to notice things that Stoling clearly didn't think she was observant enough to catch. When his secretary knocked on the door to deliver some papers, she spoke to him with the careful deference of someone walking on eggshells. Doutor Stoling, the nursing staff 15 minutes you requested, the young woman said, her voice barely above a whisper. Stoling barely looked up. Just put them on the desk, Jennifer. In next Jimmy, don't interrupt unless it's absolutely critical. The secretary's face flushed. Elena saw the way her hands trembled slightly as she placed the documents down. After she left, Stoling shook his head dismissively. Support staff these days have no sense of priorities. Sometimes I wonder if we're too lenient with them. Elena filed this interaction away in her memory, adding each to a growing list of observations about Stoling's leadership style. The way he spoke about his colleagues and subordinates painted a picture of a man who ruled through intimidation rather than inspiration. The door opened again, and this chimia young resident entered, looking nervous and apologetic. Doutor Stoling, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mrs. Chen in room 314 is experiencing complications post-surgery, and I wanted to consult. Stoling cut him off with an impatient wave. Doutor Park, isn't it? How many times do I have to tell residents not to come running to me with every minor issue? Figure it out yourself, or find another attending. That's what you here for, to learn independence, not to hold my hand through every decision. The young doctor's face went white, and Elena could see the shame and confusion in his eyes. But so, the patient's blood pressure has dropped significantly, and her oxygen saturation. Did I stutter? Dr. Park, handle it or find someone else. I'm in an important meeting. The resident backed out of the room, clearly shaken, and Elena watched as he fumbled with his phone, presumably calling another attending for help. Stoling turned back to Elena with an expression of mild annoyance. You see what I have to deal with? These young doctors have no backbone, no confidence. They expect constant hand-holding. Elena's pen moved across her notepad, ostensibly taking notes about the position, but actually documenting every interaction she witnessed. The pattern was becoming crystal clear. Stoling had created a culture of fear and intimidation where staff members were afraid to ask questions, seek guidance, or admit when they needed help. It was the antithesis of everything Elena believed about medical leadership. Doutor Stoling, she said carefully, how do you handle situations where junior staff members need guidance or support? His answer was exactly what she expected. They need to sink or swim. This is a high-pressure environment. If they can't handle it, they don't belong it. We can't afford to coddle people who aren't up to the challenge. Elena nodded thoughtfully, making another notch. And how has this approach affected patient outcomes and staff retention? Stoling's eyes narrowed slightly, as if he was beginning to suspect that Elena might be more perceptive than he initially assumed. Our outcomes are excellent, and turnover is simply part of the business. Get doctors rise to the top, and the weak ones wash out. It's natural selection in action. The phone on Stoling's desk buzzed, and his secretary's voice came through the intercom. Doutor Stoling, there has been an incident in the emergency department. Dr. Martinez is requesting your immediate assistance. Stoling sighed heavily, as if this was a tremendous inconvenience. Tell Dr. Martinez that if she can't handle a simple emergency situation, maybe she should consider a different specialty. I'm not her personal problem solver. Helena S. eyebrows rose at this callous dismissal of what sounded like a serious situation. Perhaps we should continue this interview another time, she suggested. Stolling waved her off. Não sei se, Dr. Martinez is perfectly capable of handling whatever minor crisis has everyone worked up. These people need to learn self-reliance. As if on cue, the intercom buzzed again. Dr. Stolling, it's a multi-trauma case from a highway accident. 3 patients, all critical. This time, Stolling's irritation was palpable. Fine. Tell them LLB down in 10 minutes. He looked at Helena with undisguised annoyance. You see, this is exactly the kind of drama that happens when you don't maintain proper authority. Everyone assumes they can just call the boss for every little thing. As Stolling prepared to leave for the emergency department, Helena seized the opportunity to learn more about the hospital's culture. Would it be possible for me to observe the trauma procedures? I'd be very interested to see how Metropolitan handles critical cases. Stolling paused, his hand on the door handle. Helena could practically see the gears turning in his head. On one hand, he clearly didn't want her anywhere near the action where she might actually demonstrate her competence. On the other hand, refusing would make him look petty and unprofessional. I suppose, he said reluctantly, though I should warn you that our trauma protocols are quite advanced. You might find them overwhelming, given your background. Helena beat back the urge to remind him that she'd handled trauma cases that would make most surgeons break out in cold sweats. Instead, simply nodding gracefully. I appreciate the opportunity to observe. Stolling's smile was patronizing. Just try to stay out of the way. Our team works with precision. We can't afford any disruptions from observers. The emergency department was controlled chaos when they arrived. 3 trauma bays were occupied with victims from the highway accident, a family whose car had been struck by a drunk driver. Helena's trained eye immediately assessed the situation. The father had severe abdominal injuries and was showing signs of internal bleeding. The mother had multiple fractures and a possible head injury. Their teenage daughter was in the worst condition with what appeared to be a collapsed lung and severe chest trauma. The medical team was clearly overwhelmed, and Helena could see the panic beginning to set as the most critical patient. The teenager began to deteriorate rapidly. Dr. Martinez, a competent-looking woman in her 40s, was trying to coordinate care for all 3 patients while simultaneously attempting to stabilize the girl whose oxygen levels were plummeting. The stress on her face was evident, and Helena could see why she'd called for Stolling's assistance. This was exactly the kind of situation that required strong leadership and clear decision-making. Stolling surveyed the scene with the air of a general reviewing troops, but Helena noticed that he kept his distance from the actual medical action. Dr. Martinez, he called out, his voice carrying across the trauma bay. Status report. Dr. Martinez looked up from the ventilator she was adjusting, her face flushed with exertion and stress. The teenage patient is critical. We need to get her into surgery immediately for chest tube placement and possible thoracotomy. The father needs emergency laparoscopy for internal bleeding, and the mother requires immediate tomografia computadorizada scan for suspected brain injury. Stolling nodded curtly. Well, handle it. That's what you trained for. Helena watched in disbelief as he imagined a move to assist, offer guidance, or even step closer to evaluate the patient himself. Instead, he stood back like a spectator at a sporting event, occasionally barking orders but providing no actual medical support. Dr. Martinez, your residents look confused. Get them organized. Nurse Williams, why is that intravenoso taking so long? His commentary was critical but utterly unhelpful. The situation deteriorated rapidly. The teenage girl's vital signs continued to plummet, and Helena could see that the young resident attempting to insert a chest tube was struggling with the procedure. His hands shook as he tried to find the correct intercostal space, and precious seconds were ticking away. Dr. Martinez was torn between helping him and managing the other critical patients, her face a mask of barely controlled panic. Helena watched Stolling, waiting for him to step in, provide the leadership that was desperately needed. Instead, he continued his useless commentary from the sidelines. Dr. Park, if you can't handle a simple chest tube, maybe you should reconsider your career choice. The young resident's face went white at the public humiliation. His hands began shaking even more violently. Helena had seen enough. This wasn't leadership, it was toxic grandstanding that was literally putting lives at risk. Without thinking twice, she stepped forward and spoke quietly to the struggling resident. May Helena asked Dr. Park, her voice calm and reassuring. The young resident looked up at her with desperate gratitude and quickly stepped aside. Helena moved with the fluid precision of someone who had performed this procedure hundreds of times. Her hands steady as she properly positioned the chest tube. Within seconds, air began rushing out of the teenager's chest cavity, and her oxygen levels immediately began to improve. The color returned to her lips, and her vital signs started stabilizing. Dr. Martinez looked over with relief and gratitude, but Stolling's face had turned thunderous. "Excuse me," he said loudly, his voice cutting through the controlled chaos of the trauma bay, "but who authorized you to touch my patient? This is highly irregular and completely inappropriate." Helena continued working, her focus entirely on the patient. The patient was dying, Dr. Stolling. Sometimes irregular situations require irregular solutions. She finished securing the chest tube and stepped back, allowing Dr. Martinez to take over the girl's care. The teenager's breathing had returned to normal, and it was clear that Helena's quick intervention had saved her life. The trauma bay fell silent except for the steady beeping of monitors and the controlled breathing of patients who were now stable. Dr. Martinez looked at Helena with a mixture of awe and confusion. "That was incredible. Are you a trauma surgeon?" Before Helena could answer, Stolling exploded with indignation. "Dr. Vasquez is a candidate for a position here, nothing more. She had absolutely no authority to perform any procedures, and her interference was completely out of line." His face was red with anger and embarrassment, clearly furious that Helena had demonstrated expertise he couldn't match. Furthermore, this kind of reckless behavior shows exactly why she is unsuitable for a leadership position at this institution. The junior doctors and nurses exchanged glances, clearly confused by Stolling's reaction to what was obviously a life-saving intervention. Helena remained calm, though inside she felt a cold fury building at Stolling's prioritization of protocol over human life. "I apologize if I overstepped any boundaries, Dr. Stolling. I was simply concerned about the patient's welfare." Dr. Martinez stepped forward, her voice respectful but firm. "With all due respect, Dr. Stolling, Dr. Vasquez just saved that girl's life. If she hadn't intervened when she did." She trailed off, but the implication was clear. Stolling's jaw tightened, and Helena could see that he was struggling to maintain his composure in front of his staff. "The point, Dr. Martinez, is that we have procedures and protocols for a reason. We can't have unauthorized personnel making medical decisions, regardless of the outcome." He turned to Helena with barely contained hostility. "I think it's time for you to leave, Dr. Vasquez. This interview is over, and frankly, your behavior today has shown me everything I need to know about your character." Helena felt the familiar sting of injustice, but she also felt something else, a growing awareness that Stolling's anger wasn't really about protocol violations. It was about the fact that she had demonstrated competence that he couldn't match. It had happened in front of his entire staff. "Of course, Dr. Stolling, thank you for your team." As Helena gathered her things, she noticed the way the staff members looked at her with respect and curiosity rather than the dismissive glances she'd received when she first arrived. Dr. Park approached her quietly as she headed for the elevator. "Dr. Vasquez," he said in a low voice, "I just wanted to thank you. I've never seen anyone perform a chest tube placement with such precision under pressure." "Where did you train?" Helena smiled at the young resident. "Various places, Dr. Park. Keep working on your procedures, you have good instincts, you just need confidence." Behind them, she could hear Stolling berating Dr. Martinez for allowing the unauthorized intervention, his voice carrying the sharp edge of wounded pride. Helena stepped into the elevator, but instead of feeling defeated, she felt oddly energized. Stolling's reaction had told her everything she needed to know about his character and his leadership style. More importantly, it had shown her exactly what kind of toxic environment he had created at what was supposed to be one of the country's premier medical institutions. The elevator descended slowly, giving Helena time to process everything she had witnessed during her brief time at Metropolitan Medical Center. Stolling's treatment of staff, his absence of actual medical leadership during a crisis, his prioritization of image over patient care, which all painted a picture of a man who had forgotten why he became a doctor in the first place. As the doors opened on the ground floor, Elena was surprised to see a distinguished older gentleman waiting to board. He was impeccably dressed but carried himself with the understated confidence of someone who had nothing to prove. "Doutor Vasquez?" he asked, his voice cultured but warm. Elena paused, wondering how this stranger knew her name. "Yes, I am Dr. Vasquez." The man extended his hand with a genuine smile. "Richard Blackwood, chairman of the Metropolitan Medical Center Board of Directors. I was hoping I might have a word with you." Elena's heart skipped a beat. This was not a development she had expected. Blackwood gestured toward a quiet corner of the lobby, away from the bustle of patients and visitors. As they walked, Elena's mind raced with possibilities. Had Stolling already called to complain about her unauthorized intervention? Was she about to be banned from the hospital entirely? Blackwood seemed to sense her apprehension. "Please, don't look so worried, Dr. Vasquez. I actually have some rather exciting news to share." They settled into comfortable chairs near a window overlooking the hospital's garden. Blackwood leaned forward with the air of someone about to reveal a significant secret. "First, let me apologize for the rather unorthodox nature of today's proceedings. What you experienced wasn't actually a traditional job interview." Elena's eyebrows rose in confusion. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." Blackwood's smile widened. "Dr. Vasquez, the board has been trying to recruit you for the chief of surgery position for the past 8 months. Your reputation in trauma surgery is legendary, particularly your work with underserved populations and your innovations in emergency medical protocols." Elena felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her feet. "But Dr. Stolling said, he made it clear that my background wasn't suitable for this position." Blackwood's expression darkened slightly. "Yes, we know exactly what Dr. Stolling said how he conducted himself today. It was actually the point of the exercise." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "The board has been growing increasingly concerned about reports regarding Dr. Stolling's leadership style and the culture he has created at Metropolitan. We've received numerous complaints from staff members about his management approach, but we needed concrete evidence before we could take action." Elena began to understand. So today was Dr. Stolling's final evaluation, though he didn't know it. We needed to see how he would conduct himself in a high-stakes situation, how he would treat a potential colleague, and how he would respond to a medical crisis. Blackwood's expression was grim. Unfortunately, he failed on every count. The full scope of what had transpired began to dawn on Elena. "You've been observing everything?" Blackwood nodded. "The hospital has security cameras throughout. We also had observers posted in the emergency department. Your intervention during the trauma case was particularly illuminating, not just because of your exceptional skill, but because of Stolling's reaction to it." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a more serious tone. "Dr. Vasquez, what you witnessed today, Stolling's dismissive treatment of staff, his failure to provide actual medical leadership during a crisis, his prioritization of ego over patient care, this has been going on for years. It has created a toxic environment that is driving away good doctors and nurses, ultimately compromising patient care." Elena thought about the scared secretary, the confused residents, the overwhelmed Dr. Martinez trying to manage a crisis without support from her supposed leader. The young resident, Dr. Park, was genuinely frightened of making a mistake in front of Dr. Stolling. Exactly. And that fear is dangerous in a medical setting. Doctors need to feel safe asking questions, seeking guidance, admitting uncertainty. Stolling's approach creates an environment where people are more afraid of looking incompetent than they are of harming patients. Blackwood pulled out a tablet and showed Elena a series of statistics. Since Stolling took over as chief of surgery 3 years ago, we've seen a 40% increase in staff turnover, a significant decline in patient satisfaction scores, several near-miss incidents that could have been avoided with better communication and teamwork. Elena studied the data, recognizing the patterns she'd seen at other institutions where toxic leadership had taken root. "The numbers tell a clear story," she said quietly, "but changing an entrenched culture isn't easy. It takes team and consistent effort." Blackwood nodded approvingly. which is exactly why we need someone with your background and approach to leadership. Your reputation isn't just built on surgical skill, Dr. Vasquez. You are known for creating collaborative environments, mentoring young doctors, and putting patient welfare above personal ego. That's the kind of leadership Metropolitan needs. Helena felt a surge of excitement mixed with trepidation. Are you offering me the position? I am. But first, there is something else you should know. Blackwood's expression became even more serious. What happened in the trauma bay today? Your intervention to save the teenager's life that is going to be Stolling's downfall. Not just because you demonstrated superior skill, but because his reaction was so telling. Helena remembered Stolling's fury, his prioritization of protocol over patient welfare, his public humiliation of the young resident. He was more concerned about being shown up than about the patient's condition. Exactly. And that attitude is precisely what we've been trying to document. Your presence today didn't just reveal his incompetence, it revealed his character, or lack thereof. Blackwood paused, letting this sink in. Dr. Vasquez, I want you to understand that accepting this position won't be easy. You will be inheriting a department that has been demoralized by years of poor leadership. You will face resistance from some staff members who have become accustomed to Stolling's way of doing things. You will need to rebuild trust with nurses, residents, and attending physicians who have learned to keep their heads down rather than speak up. Helena thought about the challenges ahead, but also about the opportunity to create the kind of magical environment she'd always envisioned. When would you want me to start? Blackwood's smile returned. Immediately, if possible. Stolling's termination will be effective at the end of this week. We'd like you to begin transitioning into the role as soon as possible. Helena felt a mix of emotions: excitement about the opportunity, satisfaction at the justice of Stolling's downfall, and determination to prove that she could transform Metropolitan's surgical department. I accept the position, Mr. Blackwood, but I have one condition. He raised an eyebrow. Name it. I want to personally thank every staff member who had the courage to feed complaints about Dr. Stolling. Their willingness to speak up, despite the risk to their careers, is what made this change possible. Blackwood extended his hand. Done. Welcome to Metropolitan Medical Center, Dr. Vasquez. I have a feeling he's going to revolutionize this place. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of activity. Helena resigned from her position at the community clinic, though she arranged to continue consulting there on a volunteer basis. She spent her evenings researching Metropolitan's staff, studying patient outcomes data, and developing plans for cultural transformation. On Friday afternoon, she received a call from Blackwood's office requesting her presence at a staff meeting that would announce Stolling's departure and her appointment. Helena arrived early, choosing to observe as doctors, nurses, and support staff filed into the large conference room. The atmosphere was tense. Clearly, word had spread that major changes were coming. She noticed Dr. Martinez, Dr. Park, and several other staff members she'd encountered during her interview, all looking anxious about what the meeting might bring. Stolling was noticeably absent, though Helena had heard through unofficial channels that he'd been called to a private meeting with Blackwood earlier that morning. Blackwood took the podium with his characteristic calm authority, surveying the assembled staff with a reassuring smile. Thank you all for attending this important meeting. I know there have been rumors and speculation, so I want to address the situation directly. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Effective immediately, Dr. Marcus Stolling is no longer Chief of Surgery at Metropolitan Medical Center. His employment with this institution has been terminated. A ripple of shocked murmurs ran through the audience, some voices expressing surprise, others sounding almost relieved. Helena watched the faces around her, noting the range of reactions: fear, confusion, hope, and in some cases, barely concealed satisfaction. I want to assure all of you that this decision was not made lightly. It was based on extensive evaluation of leadership practices, staff feedback, and a thorough review of departmental culture and patient outcomes. Blackwood paused, allowing this information to sink in before continuing. I also want to introduce you to our new Chief of Surgery, Dr. Helena Vasquez. Helena stepped forward as the room erupted, whispers and turning heads. She could see the recognition dawning on some faces: Dr. Martinez and Dr. Park looked particularly stunned as they realized that the woman who had saved the teenager's life was now their new boss. Dr. Vasquez, Mr. U.S. with an extraordinary background in trauma surgery and medical leadership, Blackwood continued. She has spent her career in challenging environments, always putting patient care first and fostering collaborative, supportive teams. I am confident that she will bring the kind of leadership Metropolitan needs to reach its full potential. Elena took the microphone, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes upon her. Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. I want to begin by saying that I am honored to be here. I am excited to work with all of you to create the kind of medical environment that patients deserve and that medical professionals thrive in. She paused, making eye contact with individuals throughout the room. I know that change can be unsettling, and I know that some of you may have concerns about what this transition will mean for your daily work and your careers. Let me be clear about my philosophy, Elena continued, her voice growing stronger with conviction. Medicine is a team sport. No one person, regardless of their title or credentials, has all the answers. The best patient outcomes happen when nurses, residents, attending physicians, support staff, and administration work together with mutual respect and open communication. She could see some staff members sitting up straighter, their expressions shifting from wariness to cautious optimism. I believe that every person in this room became a healthcare professional because they wanted to help people, to make a difference, to be part of something meaningful. My job as chief of surgery is to create an environment where you can do that work safely, effectively, and with dignity. Dr. Martinez raised her hand tentatively. Elena smiled and nodded for her to speak. Dr. Vasquez, what can we expect in terms of day-to-day changes? Each was clearly a question on everyone's mind, and Elena appreciated the opportunity to address each directly. Great question, Dr. Martinez. First, my door is always open. If you have concerns, suggestions, or simply need guidance, you don't need to jump through hoops or fear retribution for asking questions. Elena saw several people exchange meaningful glances clearly. This was very different from what they'd experienced under Sterling's leadership. Second, we are going to implement regular team meetings where everyone's input is valued. Nurses often have insights that can improve patient care. Residents need mentorship and support to develop their skills, and support staff see patterns and problems that the rest of us might miss. She moved closer to the audience, abandoning the formal podium setup. Third, we are going to focus on collaborative decision-making. That doesn't mean chaos or endless committees. It means that when we are facing difficult cases or challenging situations, we work together to find the best solutions. Dr. Park raised his hand, looking nervous but determined. Dr. Vasquez, what about residents who make mistakes or need extra help with procedures? Elena's expression softened with understanding. Dr. Park, let me ask you something. How do you think surgeons become experts at complex procedures? The young resident looked uncertain. Practice. Exactly. Practice, mentorship, and yes, making mistakes in a safe environment where they can learn and improve. Elena looked around the room, making sure everyone was following her point. Residents are ready to learn, not to already know everything. Our job as attending physicians is to guide, teach, and support you through that learning process. She could see the relief flooding Dr. Park's face, and several other residents nodding eagerly. If you need help with a procedure, ask for help. If you are uncertain about a diagnosis, seek input. If you make a mistake, really analyze what happened, learn from each, and make sure it doesn't happen again. That's how we create excellent doctors and safer patient care. The transformation in the room's atmosphere was palpable. Where there had been tension and fear, Elena could now sense hope and anticipation. A senior nurse in the back of the room raised her hand. Dr. Vasquez, will there be changes in how nursing staff interacts with surgical teams? Elena nodded, clearly having anticipated this question. Absolutely, and those changes will be improvements. Nurses are integral members of our surgical teams, not subordinates or assistants. You often spend more time with patients than doctors do. You are trained observers of patient condition changes, and your insights are invaluable. She moved toward the back of the room where the nursing staff was seated. I want to establish protocols where nurses feel comfortable and empowered to speak up if they notice something concerning, suggest improvements to patient care, or point out potential problems before they become crises. The senior nurse smiled for the first time since Helena had started speaking. That would be refreshing, Dr. Vasquez. Helena could hear the layers of meaning in that simple word refreshing clearly. The nursing staff had not felt valued or heard under Sterling's leadership. We here already for the same reason, Helena continued, to provide the best possible care to our patients. That requires all of us working together with mutual respect and shared commitment. As the meeting concluded, Helena watched as small groups of staff members gathered to discuss what they heard. The energy in the room had completely transformed. Where people had entered looking worried and defensive, they now seemed energized and hopeful. Dr. Martinez approached Helena as the crowd began to disperse. Dr. Vasquez, I wanted to personally thank you for what you did at the trauma bay earlier this week. That girl Rebecca Chen, she is recovering beautifully. Her parents wanted me to express their gratitude. Helena felt a warm glow of satisfaction, remembering the teenager whose life she'd helped save. How is she doing? Excellent. She should be discharged by the weekend. But more than that, the way you stepped in and handled Dr. Sterling's reaction, it showed all of us what real leadership looks like. Dr. Martinez paused, seeming to gather her courage. I have to ask, did you know that the whole thing was a setup? That the board was evaluating Sterling? Helena shook her head. Not at the chimney. I only learned about the board's investigation afterward. In the moment, I was just focused on saving a patient's life. Dr. Park joined their conversation, still looking somewhat starstruck. Dr. Vasquez, we've been researching your background since the meeting. Your publications on emergency trauma protocols are incredible. Would you be willing to mentor residents in advanced trauma techniques? Helena's smile was genuine and warm. Dr. Park, I would be delighted to work with you and the other residents. In fact, I am planning to implement a comprehensive mentorship program where experienced surgeons are paired with residents for ongoing guidance and skill development. She paused, remembering her own early days as a resident when mentorship had been scarce and support had been hard to find. I believe that investing in the next generation of surgeons is one of the most important things we can do. Your success is our success, and ultimately, each is our patients who benefit when we have skilled, confident doctors providing care. The young resident lit up with excitement. This is going to be amazing. I can't tell you how different this feels from before. Helena understood exactly what he meant by before: the fear, the intimidation, the walking on eggshells that had characterized Sterling's leadership style. Over the weekend, Helena received several phone calls from board members, senior physicians, and department heads, all expressing enthusiasm about her appointment and sharing their own experiences with Sterling's problematic leadership. Dr. Sarah Williams, the chief of internal medicine, was particularly candid during their conversation. Helena, I have to tell you, the whole hospital has been talking about what happened at the trauma bay. Not just your incredible skill, but Sterling's reaction to it. Everyone knew he was mighty concerned about being upstaged and about patient care, but seeing it happen so publicly was a real eye-opener. Helena listened thoughtfully. How widespread was the knowledge about his leadership problems? More widespread than you might think. There were informal networks of staff members who supported each other because they couldn't rely on official leadership. Nurses would quietly help residents that Sterling had humiliated. Senior physicians would provide guidance that Sterling withheld. Department heads would work around him rather than through him. Sarah's voice carried a notch of sadness. Each was a testament to the dedication of our staff that patient care remained as good as it did, despite the toxic leadership environment. Helena spent Sunday at the hospital, not in any official capacity, but simply walking the highs, observing the environment, and getting a feel for the institution she would soon be leading. She stopped by the emergency department where the trauma had occurred earlier that week, noting the efficiency of the staff and the quality of the facility. Dr. Martinez was on duty. He seemed surprised but pleased to see her. Dr. Vasquez, you didn't need to come in today. You don't officially start until tomorrow. Helena smiled. I wanted to get a sense of the place when there is no pressure, no formal agenda. How is the weekend treating you? They walked through the department together, Dr. Martinez pointing out.